Hey everyone, welcome back to Data Wrangling 101. Today I'm going to show you how to solve a real-world business analytics problem using the powerful combo of ChatGPT and KNIME's K-AI assistant. You can use AI as an assistant in two different ways. One, send your raw data to ChatGPT, ask it to perform the analysis and give you a response. And two, ask AI to help you build a KNIME workflow so you can run it weekly or as needed without depending on AI every time you need to run the analysis. This is perfect for analysts, business users, and mid-career professionals who want to leverage AI to do better, faster analysis without getting lost in the weeds. We are going to ask ChatGPT to break down our business problem, use its guidance to build a logic plan, and use KNIME and K-AI to bring that plan to life. And finally, interpret the results like a pro. Let's jump in. Each week, I receive a report showing how each SKU performed in terms of unit sales and dollar sales. The data includes the units sold in the current year and from the same week of the previous year. So in this case, I have data from week 1 of 2025 and the same corresponding week of 2024, both for units and sales. The question that I want answered, or the business problem in this case, is which SKUs sold less than 20% compared to the same week last year, which SKUs are new this year and didn't exist in the same week last year, and which are the top 20% of the SKUs that contribute to 80% of this week's sales. Let's ask ChatGPT to help us build an analytics plan to answer these questions. The prompt that we are going to provide ChatGPT is this. I have a weekly SKU level sales data for 2025 and the same week in 2024. Help me identify SKUs with sales under 20% compared to last year, SKUs that didn't exist last year, and 3, the top 20% SKUs contributing to 80% of this week's sales. I'm also going to say, for additional context, show me the calculations required along with the I want to set this up as a KNIME workflow so I can run it as needed. The more context we provide to ChatGPT, the better the response we receive. Let me hit enter. So ChatGPT has made some assumptions. It says the assumption that it's made is that that I have a data set that includes SKU, week, year, and sales for both 2024 and 2025, and it is then showing me the logic that I should be using for calculating the change in the sales. So my sales drop percentage is sales in 2025 divided by sales in 2024 for each SKU. So this joiner node is required if I have two different tables that show the sales for 2025 and 2024, but in my case 2024 and 2025 data exists in the same table. Next, we could do, it's telling us to do a set difference between 2025 SKUs and 2024 SKUs to find out how many SKUs or which of the SKUs are new for this year. And finally, to calculate the top 20% of SKUs contributing 80% of sale, it is asking us to apply the Pareto principle. We sort the SKUs by current week sales, calculate the cumulative percentage of sales, and select the top SKUs whose cumulative contribution is less than or equal to 80%. So the way we do that is we sort SKUs by descending sales, compute cumulative sales, which is a cumulative sum of the sales, and cumulative percentage, which is cumulative sales divided by total sales, ChatGPT also gives us a KNIME workflow overview. So if we had the data in two separate data sets, the joiner node would have joined it together. But in our case, we have the data in a single data set. And then we use column expressions, row filters, and output sales, which are less than 20%. And then if you wanted to find out the cumulative sales, it's giving us the workflow overview for the cumulative sales as well. And finally, it is suggesting some enhancements, which at this point we will use the enhancement that it's suggesting of using an Excel writer and exporting this data out into an Excel file. Okay, let's now go into KNIME and take a look at how we can actually build the workflow using these recommendations. With help from ChatGPT, we now have an approach as to how we solve this problem. Let's go to KNIME and start building the workflow. My data set includes data for 2 weeks, week 1 and week 2. I want to run this analysis 1 week at a time, which means that I use a row filter node and include only the first week data for the further steps in the analysis. So once I've done that, I'm going to now use an expressions node to calculate the percentage change in the sales number for this year and the previous year. My formula is going to be like this: sales 2025 minus sales 2024, and let me put this within brackets, divided by sales 2024. And since I want to calculate percentage, I will multiply this whole thing by 100, multiplied by 100, and I'm going to call this change sales percentage. Let me click on evaluate first rows. In the first 10 rows, you see that sum of our change percentage has come out to be infinity. This infinity might cause some problems in our further calculations. So for that, I'm going to wrap this whole expression to handle the infinity case. In fact, let me add a second expression to handle the infinity cases. So I'm going to click on add expression, and I will say if change sales percentage, which is my first expression, if that is equal to infinity. Infinity is a built-in function in KNIME. So if change sale percentage is equal to infinity, then I want the value infinity to be replaced with 999999, some big number to represent infinity. And if it is not infinity, then I want it to be change sales percentage. And I'm going to say, instead of using an append column, I'll say replace and replace change sales percentage. Let me evaluate first 10 rows again, and you'll see that the infinities have been changed into this large number, which can stand in for my infinity value. I'll click OK and evaluate this expression. There is a warning message on the node, and if I hover over it, it says float division returned infinity because divisor was 0, but that warning message is okay because I have handled it using the next if function expression. Alright, the next step is to identify those products that have had sales which are 20% or more lesser than last year. So if you look at the data, you'll see that the change sale percentage column shows values like minus 25.82%, minus 46.61%, and so on and so forth. It also shows values of minus 4.9%, but we are not interested in a drop this low. We are only interested in sales drop of 20% or more. So let's now create a rule or separate the rows where there is a drop of 20% or more. I'm going to use a rule engine, and my rule is going to be something like this. If my change sales percentage is less than or equal to minus 20, then mark it as true. In all other cases, the rule should I mark it as false. And let's change this to say sales drop. After I execute the node, you will see that some of the products were marked as sales drop true, some of the product were marked as sales drop false. For example, this product has had an increase in sales compared to last year, and so this is not a sales drop, this is a sales increase. But since we are now interested in the sales drops, we'll use a row filter node to include only those products where there is a sales drop. Let's configure, and the criteria we add is sales drop is true. Click OK, and when we execute this, we'll see that 111 products out of 450 products have had a drop in sales. As a final step, I'm going to export this into an Excel file. Let me specify an output file name. I'm going to call this sales analysis, and the sheet name will be specified as sales drop. I want to use this file name in further subsequent Excel writer nodes. For that, I'm going to click on this flow variable button, click on create variable, and name this variable as file path. So this branch lets us identify those SKUs which have had a drop in sales. Next, let's create another branch and identify those cases where products have not had sales in the same period last year, which we will assume to mean that those products did not exist last year in the system. So I'll create a second branch, use an expression node, let me create an expression that uses last year's unit sales. I will use an if function. If units 2024 equals 0, then let me specify a value as false, else let me specify the value as true, and my column name will be exists last. Let's evaluate first in rows to check the output. Click OK, and we want to exclude anything that is false. So I'm using a row filter again. This time my criteria exists last year equals false. So this will give me only those products that did not exist last year, and hence products that only exist this year. Let me also output this to the same Excel file using an Excel writer node. And since I want to use the same file name as the above Excel writer, I will use the variable output from that Excel writer node and connect it to the variable input of this Excel writer node and configure it to use the file path variable from that node. I will change the write options to append, and I will change the sheet name to say new underscore SKUs. Okay. Finally, we want to identify the list of products that make up 80% of this week's sales. To do that, we are going to start off with asking KNIME AI. Given I have a list of SKUs with corresponding sales, I want to identify those SKUs that contribute to 80% of total sales. Let's see what KNIME AI tells us. Looks like the question that we have asked KNIME is beyond the number of allowed tokens. So let's ask this question again and see if we get a better response this time. So this time KNIME says you can achieve this by sorting the SKUs in the sales in the descending order, calculating cumulative sum of the sales, then filtering SKUs until the cumulative sales reaches 80% of the total. This is often done by using group by and moving aggregation nodes in KNIME along with row filter to select the top contributing SKUs. So let's do that. Let us First, use a group by to calculate the total sales for the week. So I'm going to create another branch from our expression node, use group by, configure it to say week number as our grouping column, and the manual aggregation is going to be sales 2025 sum. Click OK, and when we run this, we'll see week number and total sales. We want to calculate what is the 80% value of the total sales. So let's use another expression node and let's calculate sum of sales multiplied by 0.8 and let's call it 80 PCT underscore sales. Okay, when you run this, you'll get the 80% value of sales of the total. Next, we need to now perform another group by. This time we are going to create a sum of all the sales of the SKU that happened in the week. In the manual aggregation, I'm going to say sales 2025 sum. Okay. When I run this, you'll see for each SKU what is the total sales that happened that week. My next step is to sort this data in descending sales. I'm going to use a sorter node, configure it, sales in descending order, click OK. Before we go further, I want to rename this column and remove this dollar sign from the column name. I will use a column renamer and change the column name to say SKU underscore sales underscore 2025. Click OK. The next step, according to the recommendation by KNIME AI, is to use a moving aggregation node. So let me execute this and bring in a moving aggregator node. Let's configure this. So in this case, I want to perform a cumulative computation and I want to perform a sum of the SKU sales. Then you click OK, and when I run this, you will see the cumulative sales of the SKUs shown in this column. The next step is to bring in the 80% of the sales value into this data set so that we can perform some filtering. So let me add a joiner node. Let me join it with this group by output, and we'll configure it to join using the week number. And all I want from the right side of my joining data is the 80% sales. Click OK, and I will evaluate this. So you'll see my 80% value here. My final step is to use a rule engine, and here I want to say sum of SKU sales 2025 is less than or equal to 80% sales. Then let's say true, and in all other situations we want to say false, and let's call this 80 contributor. Okay, run this, and now we apply a row filter node to exclude anything that's not part of the top 80%. So 80 contributor is true. Click OK, execute, and you'll see that 212 products contribute to a total sale of 80%. Let's finally output this also to the same Excel file using the Excel writer node, and once more we want to use the same file path. We want to append underwrite options, and I want to keep the sheet name as top 80. Click OK. Now when I run this final Excel writer node, KNIME is going to append the same file with 3 tabs or sheets with our calculations. Let me now show you the final output. So this is the final output. It's one file with 3 tabs: sales drop, new SKUs, and top 80, each showing the calculation and the analysis that we did, so that your business users could look at this one file and get all the answers to the questions that they want answered. Let's wrap up with a quick guide. Use ChatGPT when you need to frame the business problem, define analytic logic and rules, interpret and present the insights. Use KNIME K-AI when you want help choosing workflow nodes, automating repeated logic in KNIME, suggestions for KNIME syntax and tools. In the past few videos on the channel, I have showed you how to call ChatGPT from a KNIME workflow and use the power of an LLM within your data analysis workflow. In this video, we saw how to use ChatGPT and KNIME's K-AI to guide you in building a workflow that solves a real business problem. Thanks for watching. If you're interested in exploring the KNIME workflow, you can download the dataset and the KNIME workflow from the link below. If this helped you, subscribe to Data Wrangling 101 for more AI-powered analytics tutorials. Let me know in the comments what business problem should we solve next with AI. See you in the next one.